Welcome back, my friends, to She Believed. I am your host, Christina Guerrero. You know, one of my goals this season was to find women who've really been through it, right? They've seen and experienced the unimaginable and then somehow found their way back. Women who chose to believe they could, and then they did, right? They were able to rise. And that's exactly what we get when we meet Yona Deshomme. She is crazy successful, a literary publicist working with big time folks like Kevin Hart. But behind all of that, she was battling alcohol addiction, and then came a devastating cancer diagnosis. And if you're thinking, Christina, this probably hits a little close to home for you. Yeah, I'd say so, which is why we connected so deeply. But this story isn't about everything that happened to Yona. It's about what she did next. Her courage to be so honest and vulnerable about the uncomfortable stuff that we'd rather keep in the closet is admirable. And I have a feeling it was freedom for her. And so we're just going to get right into the nitty gritty when I asked Yona to take me back to the beginning and the moment that she knew that something had to change. Take a listen.
It was New Year's Day, or actually New Year's Eve, going into New Year's Day, and I made the promise, okay, I'm finally going to stop drinking. I
Mm.
said it. I was like, okay, I was down to my last little bit of vodka. That was going to be it. Not so much. Wasn't ready. I really wasn't ready. I had set these deadlines for myself before, and at that point, I was just like, you know what, just one more day, just one more day. And then there was a day when I woke up from a very lucid dream where I saw myself being pulled over by the cops, lights everywhere, flaring in my face. And in the dream, I said, oh my God, they're going to put me under the jail.
Oh.
And I woke up and it felt my heart was racing. I felt like, oh my God, you know, this is it. But then I woke up and I realized it was a dream. So when I think about where I am today versus that day when I woke up and realized, yeah, I can't keep living my life this way. It was controlled by the drink. It was my husband. The bottle literally slept in the bed with me. That's how serious, it was the round the clock drinking. And, that day I decided, it was February 19th, 2017. And I said, okay, this is the day that it ends. This is the day that I beat this. But you
Mhm.
never know. You think you're going to battle. Like that's your biggest battle, right? But little did I know that a bigger battle was coming later.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But really, let's go back
Hmm.
to your struggle and then your
Hmm.
belief that you could overcome or at least confront that struggle to find yourself in a better place. And that is the struggle and is the addiction.
Yeah.
And that is where we really connected because we've been super transparent and honest about how alcohol can ruin lives, starting with
Hmm.
our own and then kind of trickle into everybody else's. And this has really kind of been a burden that you have been carrying for a lot of your adult life. And I mean, how would you describe that? How would you describe your addiction, your alcohol addiction?
God. It was that feeling of not being perfect. I grew up in a Caribbean household where perfection, where excellence, academic excellence, all of those things they were not negotiable. This is who you had to be. So I remember being in the eighth grade and I was salutatorian and I was so excited about being salutatorian. And my father came afterward, after I got the awards and everything, and people are congratulating me. And he smiled. He said, oh, that's good. He said, but I still don't understand why you weren't number one.
Still not good enough.
So it started from then, that feeling of I'm never good enough and constantly trying to fight, to be perfect, setting the bar so high for myself that even I couldn't meet those expectations. So the drinking really started kind of like on a casual, because we're publicists, you're a TV person, we're going to the
It's the
party.
business.
It's so the drinking really started when I went to Europe in the late 90s. I'm a singer and a dancer, and I was part of a Haitian folklore dance troupe. And we went traveling and, representing Haiti all over France. It was the best time of my life. It was 1998. I was in my mid 20s. I was cute. It's like I felt like Beyonce before Beyonce knew she was Beyonce, and what do they do in Europe? 12 o'clock, here comes the wine. So when you're in France, you do what the French do. And, it wasn't even really an issue then, right? I just was kind of like going with the flow, but slowly but surely, like when I got back, um, I started relying on it more and more. I use it as an excuse to, oh, I've had a rough day because I was teaching then.
Mhm.
Whew. And I was teaching teenage girls. So that should already tell you. Okay.
It
With
was
all
complicated.
that's, oh, honey. And these were young ladies from the juvenile justice and foster care system. So there was a lot of trauma, with them. So it was stressful. So it started off as, oh, I'm going to have a drink because, oh, I deserve it. It's the day. And then little by little, it really, got away from me. But, I dealt with it then. It got really bad. I started to drink so much that, when you drink so much, you don't get drunk anymore.
So you have
That
to like
kind of
double
experience.
down. Yeah, just it's not working.
So, no. So I started to mix alcohol with sleeping pills. And one day, I guess I took one too many. And the thing is, I know better. I went, it's like I was college graduate. I knew all the things. I think that's the problem with some of us. We're too damn smart for our
Mhm.
own good, and we think, oh, I can do this and I can do that, and we, like somehow,
We're
you
not
know,
being
the,
reckless. Like I feel like there's a lot of times we're not thinking we're being so reckless, but we're like but we're smart. Like we're smart and we're functioning and we're doing the things. So this, yeah, there's a part of you that really feels like I've got my life together. I make really great choices normally. This is just one of those choices that I'm making and all is going to be well, but it's
it's not.
reckless.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And it was so reckless that um I didn't even lock my apartment door. And thankfully, and I say this was God, my one of my girlfriends just happened to pop over to visit me. She's knocking on the door. She knew I was home because my car was in the parking lot, and she happened to try the door and she found me passed out on the couch. Barely, I remember her shaking me, and I remember telling her I didn't try to kill myself. Because even then, even in my drunken stupor, I'm still trying to hide. I spent so much of my life with this mask on because Yona is this. Yona, she's the bubbly one. She's the smart one. She's the this and she's that. And all those years, I'm juggling all these different identities, and even even though I was under the influence, I still managed to have enough lucidity to actually say, I didn't try to kill myself. So went into, detox, thought it was just going to be detox. I was like, okay, you know what? I just need to go someplace where I'm away from alcohol. I'll come back. I'll be fine. My friends just, convinced me to do the 28 days. And they were like, look, Yona, it's 28 days, as compared to the rest of your life.
Were
So
you
you can
pissed
just do
when they
this.
made you do that? Were you pissed? Were you like, no? Or was there like a culpa where you're like, I went too far. Okay, this is one way that I can like,
It
have some
was a
accountability.
mixture. It was really a
Yeah.
mixture of all of those things. Like I don't remember being angry. I remember being scared
Mm.
of what would people think. It was more that for me. Like, what are you going to tell people that, where are you going to tell people that I am? Like I'm not an alcoholic. Like, I'm not like them. That kind of thing. Alcoholics are the ones who are sitting with a brown paper bag on the corner.
Yeah.
I was a college educated. I was an educator working with, teenage, young women and blah, 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 the resume, all of that. And I was like, no, that's not me.
Mm.
But deep down inside, there was that voice that was saying, sweetie, yeah, that is you. and clearly you can't stop by yourself. So maybe this will be a good time to kind of figure out like how I got there. Because I didn't drink in high school. I didn't do the things that a lot of people, even in college. Strongest thing I had was I had a fuzzy navel. I think that was my first drink. And then I was introduced to Long Island iced teas, and that was a whole other thing. Woo, at Bennigan's, Long Island. Oh my God. Bennigan's iced.
It's a slippery slope. It's a gateway.
Oh my God. That was like, but even then, I
You were
wasn't
just like a
reckless.
party girl.
A party girl.
I can just so relate to that because, even in my 20s, my late, college years, and you just think that you're out having a good time, you're amongst your friends, this is kind of a rite of passage. And then one day somebody's, shaking you awake and you're now in rehab, and it can happen that quick. And it's interesting because I say it can happen that quick, but it's a buildup, right? It's a
Yes.
buildup.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
One step leads to another, then you get to that point. Um, and so what did you feel like when you got help the first time? Like, oh, this is why I was doing it, and now I have a new path forward.
Yeah, by the time I got up to 28 days, I had a PhD, honey. I diagnosed myself and everything else, because I'm a smart one. So I came out with a lot of fancy terms and was like, oh well, this was a passing thing, I definitely need to leave it alone. I was saying all the right things in the meetings because I'm a good little girl, still with
Right.
that
Good
mentality, wanting that
student. Yeah.
acceptance, like good girl kind of thing. So I stayed sober for 9 years. I was like super AA in the beginning, going to all the meetings. I had the sponsor, and I did outspeaks, and I was going hard for about 3 years. And then after a while, you know, I went from going to meetings 3 or 4 times a week to, twice a week to maybe once a week to then maybe once a month and then once every other month until I just stopped going. And I basically told myself, you know what, you've been down that road. You're not going to go back. You're not going to be, that part of the percentage of alcoholics who relapse, because I was convinced I was going to be that 2% or whatever it was that they said at the time. I was like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that. Huh? Yeah. Um, and life continues to life, right? So my mom and my grandmother passed away, and I always tell people, when those two women leave this earth, that's when y'all need to come check for me. And I would literally say to them, check my bag, make sure I'm not walking around with a water bottle with alcohol in it. I was telling them all of my secrets, right? Grandmother died, didn't drink. Mother died, and my mother was my North Star. North Star. So when she died, I tell people I felt like I was put on a ship in the middle of the sea, and there was no wind and I had no sail. That's how lost and just devastated I was at her death. But I didn't drink. 3 years after, I took my first vacation in I don't know how long, because after taking care of my mother and my grandmother, I hadn't been on vacation in 5, 6, 7 years. Went to Anguilla, which is one of my favorite places to be. And a guy was like, hey, I'm buying drinks. What are you having? And without even thinking, I said wine.
You hadn't had a drink up to this point in how many years?
9
Did
years.
it come out like a foreign language? Did it punch you in the gut? Was it
No,
surprising that you had said that, or it was?
I mean, I kind of said to myself, "Ooh, did I just say wine?" But by that time, the wine was in my hand,
Yeah.
and then I was already committed. So I drank it very gingerly. I remember that, and I kept waiting, like what was going to happen. Was the sky going to open up and the ground swallow me whole? Like, what was going to happen? And I was like, oh, okay. I was able to have one, two, and I was good. So I was like, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe
Yeah.
I was just having a bad time, and I was depressed. My boyfriend broke up with me, and blah, 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 and that, and I even came up with my own term. I said, I am a situational
Trigger.
alcoholic.
Oh, alcoholic. Okay, so alcoholic was still in there. So not all the time, but just sometimes.
Right. I'm not really an alcoholic. It's only depends on the situation, you know.
What is happening? Like, if you can look back on this time with what you know now, what was
Hmm.
happening then? What do you think was happening in
Um,
your brain and the way you were justifying it, the way you were rationalizing it? What do you think? Were you just tired? Were you just like, I need an out, like I need something to numb?
yes,
And so
I
you can make
was
all the excuses, you can like make all the excuses to make it work, to fit
absolutely.
your narrative.
It was the grieving process.
Yeah.
It was, having to process, the illnesses and, all the things, being a caretaker and all that involves. I had a lot of resentment against my father, lots of resentment, against him. And I kind of felt like, you know what? I've been good for 9 years. I can have one or two. It's okay. And I started that automatic justification, you know? And then when I had, the two drinks and I didn't like pass out, nothing happened. I was
Your whole
like, oh,
life didn't fall apart. You're like, oh,
no,
is it so bad?
no.
Hello, old friend.
Oh, please. And even and the thing is, I really drank in moderation, like normal people while I was on vacation. I wasn't running to the liquor store to get the vodka. I was just like, like normal people having one with, with at a reception and very, very normal until I got home
Mm.
because I still was on vacation with one of my girlfriends. So I still had to toe that line. Even she didn't question it because again, I had the one and she knew I was in rehab, but again, people, even to this day, when on the rare occasion where I do kind of out myself, for a particular reason, I say that I'm an alcoholic, there are girlfriends that are like, there is no way, not you. I remember seeing you in those days. She's like, you were never like, I've never seen you. And I was like, yeah, I was really good at masking it.
Mhm.
I was very good at masking my pain. I didn't like myself at
Mm.
all. So
Mm.
when I had a few drinks, I was the life of the party. I was funny. I was charming. I didn't have to work at it. People liked to be around me. They're like, oh, girl, we can hang out with you anytime. And it's like, I got love
And
from people
acceptance.
and
Yes.
acceptance.
Yeah.
So I kept drinking and not taking the time to ask myself, okay, what are you running from, babe? You're running again. You're running. And this time you're running real fast. Like, what is going on? It took me 5 years, 5 years of misery, 5 years of constant hiding. It got to the point where I was drinking round the clock, even at work. And I didn't even do that really the first time. It got to the point where I was just completely exhausted. I was running from everyone who loved me. I just disappeared. I disappeared. The only people who saw me work, superficial folks, the party people. But my core folks, oh no, I didn't speak to them because
They
they
would
would know.
they would know. Yeah, they would know. And so when you were drinking like daily at work, were you just maintaining, right? Like you never got sloppy, but you were
Mm-mm.
always just the right amount of numb.
Correct.
Yeah.
I knew exactly how much to drink to give and then give myself a break, drink water, that kind of thing. And then I would probably not drink somewhere between like lunchtime and maybe 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And once I knew it was time to go home, oh yeah, because I took a bus. Oh yeah, that's when I started. And would drink all the way to the bus stop, all the way home on the bus, and then would get in my car and drive home. It was
Yeah.
a 25-minute drive.
Extra drive. You're working in a very high profile job at this point. Tell
Hmm.
the audience kind of like what you're doing and how you're managing the two high profile work with high profile people and then on top of that kind of numbing and self-medicating?
Yeah, I mean, I was an associate director of publicity, at a major house, so I was working with everybody, all the hottest names. When I was working, I was laser focused. And then I wouldn't touch alcohol until everything was over, the last book was signed and everything else. And by the time my client, the author, was safely in their vehicle off to their hotel, that's when the vodka came
Yeah.
out, and I would basically be blitzed for the rest of the night. It took me going into the hospital. I had come back from a trip to Haiti and I had the worst diarrhea, so much that, I had to be hospitalized because of it. And the doctor came in and he was like, I'm looking at your liver tests. He's like, do you drink? I was like, "Oh, yeah, just some, a few,
Situationally.
well, yeah, situationally." And it's like, bit, but not really. And the thing is, I could tell he was looking at me like, "You're full of it," because he saw the numbers. And the thing is, just before he came into my room, I had drunk the last bit of the vodka that I came to the hospital with. And I took the last bit and I said, "Damn, I'm not going to be able to be out of here for another day or two. What am I going to do?" And I think that hospital stay is really, and that, that whole conversation I had in my head was like, Yona, I, you got to stop. And
Yeah.
the doctor did say that if I continued to drink as much as I did, that I was well on my way to cirrhosis, because at that point my liver was already fatty. And we all know that fatty liver, yeah, you're drinking quite a bit. I was drinking like a quart a day of
Wow.
vodka. Yeah. So it was after that that I finally was like, okay, this has to stop. I had the dream about the cops and, woke up in a sweat and everything else. I called my godfather, who just happened to work. He was a driver for a rehab center,
Mm,
so
wow.
I always
Just gotta
had
go.
a way
Yeah.
out.
You've always had a ride,
Always
literally.
had a ride. And he would have taken me. He wouldn't have judged me. He knew, like, when I didn't speak to them for over a year, they were like, yeah, something, yeah, something. So when I called him, he was just like, okay. He made the calls for me and he picked me up. He dropped them off. He spoke to the staff. He was like, that's my daughter. Please take care of her. And that really started my journey, of healing, of really looking at what my issues were. That time I went in, I was serious. I was like, you know what, Yona, you're about to like blow up your life. So you need to figure your stuff out as to why you do the things you do. So I did all the therapy, did all the things. And I didn't do a full 28 days. I did about a week to 10 days. So that's all the insurance would pay for at the time. And
Yeah.
then I got out and then I straight and narrow, went to the meetings every day, got a sponsor, and I was doing really, really well. I got another promotion and then I was going to be on the road, with Kevin Hart. I was so excited because, Kevin at the time was like the hottest thing. And
Mhm.
I was excited. Like, oh, this is great. Oh, my friends were like, oh my God, I'm so jealous.
How are you managing your sobriety up to that point? Did you feel like pretty solid?
Oh, I was solid because, when I went back in, because this was February and Kevin's tour started in June of that same year, I really threw myself into the program, and started opening up and letting people in and, actually having real relationships. So whenever I was feeling any kind of way, I called someone. And I felt really good. I started feeling unwell when I was on the road with him, actually. Wasn't eating as much. But I was a thick girl. So like my sister used to say, I could live off the land for a couple of days. I wasn't gonna die. I was not gonna die.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was just stress. It got to the point where I was barely eating. I would eat and I just all of a sudden just felt so full. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? And one of my offers at the time, I was on the road with her and she was like, Yona, this is really bothering me. She's like, I've been with you 3, 4 days and barely eaten anything. And, and I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to make sure I go to the doctor when I came back. So I went into my GI doctor's office and I was like, look, somebody needs to see me today, not tomorrow. Doctor comes in and he was like, oh, well, I see why you're unable to eat. I was like, yeah, doc, so what's up? And he was like, you have a tumor.
Tumor.
And I'm like, what? Huh? Well, how big is it? Don't worry about that right now. We have to wait until the tests come and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, all right. Then 2 days later, I was in my office and at that point, I was on an all-time high at work because one of the books that I worked on was a National Book Award finalist, excuse me. And I was so proud. It was the first time in my career I got to go to the ceremony. It's a big deal. And the phone rings. And the minute the phone rang, I knew what the doctor was going to say. And he was like, I'm sorry, Yona, it's cancer. So I went to the ceremony anyway, and I sat at the table. And baby, there was every kind of alcohol on that table. Every kind. I looked at it. I took, a deep breath, and I said, that's not going to change what the doctor just said, right? So I didn't touch anything. I definitely couldn't eat. So everyone's celebrating and everything else, and I'm sitting here telling myself, "Oh my God, I have cancer." Yeah, it's stage 4. It was in my GI juncture. It was in my lymph nodes. It was in my esophagus. It was in my back. And they were suspecting it was hitting my ovaries and my fallopian tubes as well.
So just
So
taking over.
So I said to myself, oh my God, if I had not stopped, where would I be right now? I'd be dead. If I did not stop drinking before chemo, I would have been dead because I would have kept drinking to numb the pain and to try and to be in awful denial. But at that point, I was so committed to living, that I dug my heels in. And the doctor, was telling me the reality, because stage 4 cancer, stomach cancer at that, and it had spread to that extent. And she's like, did you hear what I just said? And I was like, heard everything you said. And she's like, but do you understand the gravity? Gravity of what I said. I was like, yes, I understand. I said, but let me tell you something. I said, you don't know me and you certainly don't know my God. So tell me what the plan is and let's go. I have things to do. I knew I was scared, but it's like I knew that I was going to survive this thing. And then I called my father and I was like, Dad, stop crying. Your girl's not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. I had 22 rounds of chemo, taking
Wow.
chemo home with me. My dog died after my second treatment. And guess what he died of?
Cancer.
Stomach cancer.
Oh,
So to this day, my precious Milo Yorkie that I absolutely adored. I don't have children, so that was my baby.
yeah.
And I believe that he took death from me. He loved me that much that he was like, it's okay, Mom. I'm going to take this one for you. I believe
Wow.
that. After my first scan, I went in and then she was like, oh my God, the tumor has shrunk markedly. And I was like this, told you. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love it. Clearly, you have gone through many, many things and you have survived and persevered and believed
hmm
beyond a shadow of a doubt. Sometimes
hmm
it doesn't even make any sense. Where are you today and where do you get your strength from?
God, my spiritual life, it's cemented,
Yeah.
my prayers, my meditation. And, I have an incredible network of people, who I call, who I can be myself with. They can see me in my weak moments. I don't have to put on a mask. I don't have to be someone else. Um, and those are the people that lift me up. Some of them are biological family, like my younger sister, my brother-in-law, my dad. And I have other people that are, people that I've bonded with along the way. And, your chosen family. And I also lost a lot of people between the cancer, and the drinking, because I realized that, there's certain people in certain situations that did not serve me.
Yeah.
So today I embrace joy. Right now I am in a period of ascension. So when you reached out to me, um, and I felt so connected, to you. I was like, oh my God, someone who gets it. It's like when I was hearing your story, I was like, oh, we would have been twins. We would have been hanging because, it was the same pain, and I would have recognized it in you, and I'm sure you would have recognized it, in me, so today, I do everything with joy and love. I don't take a second for granted. I only do things that are meaningful, that I want to do. I stay away from things like gossip and, things that are not about a forward movement and an elevation. Listen, I don't drink no matter what, and it's not cancer.
Yeah.
So if it's not those two things, I can survive it. So I've survived deaths. I've survived breakups. I've survived loss, tremendous loss, and I'm still here. I'm
Yeah.
still here. So when I'm feeling, like life is lifing, I tap in
Mm.
because I developed, I harness, I tap into that sacred space within, the place where I let no one in but God. I need to go and heal myself. That's where I go.
I do love that. And I do feel like your epiphany of life and love and joy is twofold, right? Like I experienced
Hmm.
this as well. We had the epiphany of sobriety, which opens up like not just sobriety, but like sobriety and then healing, right? Which opens
Hmm.
an entirely different world. And
Hmm.
then surviving cancer on the other side. So that's like double whammy of absolute gratitude, which completely can change somebody's life and the way that they look at it, even when shit happens. Like, this isn't the end. This isn't like the end of our heartbreak or the end of our
Right.
disappointments or the end
Right.
of bad news, but we're
Right.
able to come at it in kind of a new way.
Hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing. What would you say to people who maybe are listening and they're going through, they're kind of questioning maybe their relationship with alcohol, but it doesn't seem that bad. Like, well,
Hmm.
I had to go to rehab. Christina had to hit rock bottom. Like, mine's not
Hmm.
that bad, but maybe it's just questioning just a little bit. What
Hmm.
kind of advice would you give, or what was the moment that you went from, I kind of think this is a problem, to crossing over and you wish you would have known it before?
I wish I would have realized that every time that I was hurting, every time that I made a mistake and I was feeling bad about myself, that the first thing I did was pour myself a drink. Had I been able to make that connection and say, oh, wait a minute. Every time I do this, this is what I do. Maybe I could have stopped myself. Maybe I would, wouldn't have gone through as much as I went through for as long, because the second time is the killer,
Mhm.
because you go right back to where you were in 5 seconds flat. So I went back to drinking more than when I stopped the first time in less than a week. It was fast.
Yeah.
So I wish someone would have said, take a beat. It's okay to feel the feeling. It hurts. It does. But eventually it heals. Help. Just like you got to put the Band-Aid on, you got to put the Bacitracin in you because you don't want to leave no marks and all those things that we do on the outside, need to learn to do that on the inside. For me, it was finding an amazing therapist, shout out to Cinta Che, who was able to truly see me, didn't let me get away with the crap. I discovered so many things that I was able, to release, and it's okay to release it. You don't have to carry it. You
Yeah.
really don't. It doesn't define you. And there's no shame in getting help. That's why I don't have a problem sharing my story with anyone,
Mm-hmm.
because the shame part of it, that went away a long time ago because I got help. And
And you
because I
voiced
got,
it. Yeah.
right? Because we got help, we're able to do these amazing things now. So there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. It's just like, we took our medicine, and now, we're all, we're still healing. There's always a growth process, but for the most part, we're not that person anymore. And the
Yeah.
real Yona, the real Christina emerged. We were funny even without the alcohol. We were loving. We were creative. We were all those things without the alcohol, but we needed to shut out the noise to actually hear it, believe it, embrace it, and own it. Because, baby, once we did that, girl,
Unstoppable.
okay, it's like Watch Our World. I keep telling people, I said, baby, this is just the beginning.
Yep.
Watch me
2.0.
work.
Yeah. Yona
Watch me
2.0. Here
work.
she comes.
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Hey, you're still here. Man, your dedication to get to the end, that's inspiring. I'd be so grateful if you hit that follow button and share this episode. And if you really loved it, hey, leave a review, because validation is my love language. Until next time, in the immortal words of Journey, don't stop believing.